So in a previous video, very lengthy video, if you'd like to check it out, the link will be under this video. But in here in Storytime, I discuss my disdain for the third Godfather movie. As a cinephile and a fan of the Godfather series, I feel insulted by the whole existence of Godfather Part 3. I won't go into all the details. Of course, it will be in that previous video, so you can check that out. But what I didn't know at the time that I recorded that video was that Paramount, Francis Ford Coppola, they were actually going to release a recut version of The Godfather Part 3, which was called The Death of Michael Corleone, The Godfather Coda. Like a coda is essentially like the epilogue. So I think that's what he described the third movie as. So the third movie is not meant to be part of the whole narrative story of The Godfather. It's meant to be an epilogue, like a post, what happens at the end. So I actually got a chance to watch it. AMC had been airing it and they aired it in its entirety, uncensored, explicit. So there is, they essentially the version that was released on DVD and video or on demand is what they showed on TV. So I'm just going to talk about the differences, what I feel about the film. So essentially, the major differences are certain scenes have been shortened, certain scenes have been lengthened, certain scenes have moved around. But overall, it's essentially the same movie. And as I said in that original video, it's a bad movie, but the coda and the coda, the death of Michael Corleone, it essentially makes a bad movie with context. So what I mean by that is that they recut the beginning of the movie. In the original version, it starts off with this big old like ceremony of Michael receiving an award from the Catholic Church, and then a big party at his house for him winning that award. So it wasn't really like explicitly clear why he was getting that award. So they described it. So they essentially gave you explanation towards that. And it actually was like a scene that was originally like towards the middle of the movie or like to the end of like the first act or the beginning of the second act where he met like the cardinal, I believe, of New York, and essentially he makes a deal to purchase like this corporation or the controlling stock of this corporation owned by the Vatican. And in exchange for that, he had like an initial price, but the cardinal proposed that he put up like $200 million more than what was expected, and in exchange, he would be celebrated and given this award by the Catholic Church because of course like he's a reputed mob boss. So if like the Catholic Church is gonna do business with him, they kind of have to kind of make him, brighten up his image a little bit. So he agreed to that, and I talked about the complexities of the whole Catholic Church and the corporation part of the movie, which was confusing in the first movie. So that stays, but it gives you like a little bit more context. Then the end of the movie is change, which was actually like a final scene added that according to the DVD timeline, the DVD bonus feature timeline took place in 1997, where he basically dies alone in Sicily, his like family's estate, but they changed it so that you don't actually see him die. Instead, they had like this little title card where it explains that basically a punishment worse than death is for a person to live a long life and have to live with all the bad things that he did in life. So that was like a bigger punishment than him just like dying. You're left with that image of him just growing old and alone by himself out in the Sicilian sun. and you realize like it's a bigger punishment than him dying. But of course, like a lot of stuff that was in the original movie, in the original cut of the movie, got kept in. It still has the bad plot, the incest between Michael's daughter and his brother's illegitimate son, Vincent, the complex business and negotiating and the underhanded stuff with the Catholic Church. So it didn't make the movie better. So I think like the original cut of the movie, I'll probably give it like a 3 out of 10. But like this recut version, I give it a 3.4 because it adds more context. So it's understandable, but it's still bad. So it's a really bad plot, but it's you just narratively is less confusing than it was, but it didn't make it any better of a movie. So I just thought like I would add this little review of this version of the movie, and it's interesting because it's called The Death of Michael Corleone, because in the production of Godfather Part Three, Al Pacino was being difficult, so Francis Ford Coppola and Mario Puzo, the author, they actually threatened to begin the third movie with Michael Corleone's funeral, and it would just call the movie The Death of Michael Corleone, not The Godfather Part 3. So that was interesting that they named the recut version The Death of Michael Corleone. So that's my thoughts on it.